Welcome to the HR department, your front row seat to conversations about the modern workplace and everything shaping the world of work. Powered by HRKyle Services, your guide through the world of work. This podcast is hosted by Patrick Smith and Becki Smith, two passionate voices bringing decades of experience, real-world insight, and a no-nonsense approach to the issues that matter most to employees, leaders, and HR pros alike. From hiring and culture to leadership and layoffs, nothing's off the table. So clock in, tune up, and get ready. The HR department starts now.
Hi, welcome back to the HR department. He's Kyle and I'm Becki. And today we are going to discuss the value of preparing for a restructure, a layoff, or a closure. And as usual, we have stories. So let's just kind of talk first, Kyle, if you can give me a couple sentences about just the value of preparing for something like this.
Well, in these situations, you like to think how it's going to go, but until you're there, you really don't know. So this idea of preparing, what you're really trying to do is prepare for as many of the knowns as you can, so that when an unpredictable situation comes up, you're able to react to it more appropriately.
So do you think that if companies, leaders are preparing for these restructurings, layoffs, they're thinking about it, they should contact a professional who has been through it before?
Well, I mean, no question, because again, they're already unpredictable. And if you've never gone through one before, you literally don't know what you don't know. So someone such as yourself, and again, appreciate the lead in, I've been involved, fortunately or unfortunately, in quite literally hundreds of these meetings. I've been involved in dozens of these scenarios where we're talking about a restructure, a reorg, a layoff situation. So I've seen a lot of different situations, and that preparation that I can bring to those is invaluable because, again, we don't always know what's going to happen. So if we can check off as many boxes as possible, say, okay, here's what we know about this situation. When that unpredictable happens, we're able to pivot to it a lot easier.
So being proactive.
You have to be. Yeah, you can't go into this reactive. You also can't go into it with this 30,000-foot viewpoint. And the perspective that we bring, and again, this is based upon a lot of experience, is we take it down to its lowest common denominator. And that is what's happening in that room when that meeting's happening. What's happening after the action takes place? How are we making sure that person exits the facility and exits the ground? So we're really getting down to this very finite level to make sure that we're lowering the risk to your organization in the event, and then also we're making sure that the fallout afterwards is minimal.
What kind of a time period? So let's say somebody's considering restructuring. That's not quite as negative. So somebody's considering a restructure. So what kind of time period would they need to call us, have us come in and start working on something like that?
You know, it is going to depend on the situation because of the scope, the number of locations, is it across state lines, et cetera, et cetera. But a good rule of thumb is if you're planning one of these, we should be talking at least 6 to 8 months in advance.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I am sure that everybody watching has been through where they've been laid off, something's closed. I know I've been through 3 or 4 of them myself, as you have. So they have stories. We have stories. Right. So again, as we love stories, tell us one about this situation.
Well, the stories are always endless because, again, there have been so many different types of situations. But I've got one that comes to mind relative to preparation. And I think it's relevant to especially the conversation we're having today. And I'm reminded of a termination situation in this example. And it was one where we were steadily reducing staff. And I don't like to do it that way, but the situation dictated that over a period of time that we would steadily reduce staff. So in this particular reduction, believe it or not, we just had one employee targeted in a particular department. And we started talking about this at least a few weeks in advance of who it was and so on. And we knew the day was coming And we had identified a day that made the most sense for this action to take place. And again, a lot of prep led up to that.
Yep. So talk to me about the situation and how you handled it.
Yeah. So again, this is where knowing your people really comes into play, and it's part of the service that we offer. When we sit down, we talk about who is going to be impacted through this action, and what do you know about them? Talk to me about that person. What are their habits? And again, we're not getting into this, deep investigation of the person, but we're trying to understand who they are, what they're about, how they interact with others, what's their connection with the company, and so on, so that we have some level of possibly predictability as to how they might handle this discussion. So in this particular example, this was a gentleman that had worked with the company not very long. He'd been there about a year, and really the type that kept to himself. He came in, did his job, good employee, but he was definitely a person that kept to himself and was pretty quiet. And based upon that, people, just because of his interactions, were, again, a little leery of him.
So what happened? Did it end up in a good situation?
Well, ultimately it did end up in a good situation. But the lead up, knowing what I knew, and again, this was a smaller office that I was actually physically located in. So I had an opportunity to know all the employees there. And I got to know this gentleman a little bit just in passing and speaking to him, maybe talking a little bit. We even, at one point, he evidently must have parked near me in the parking lot, and he noticed my car. And at that point, I was driving a Mustang convertible, so that caught his attention. And he was someone that I was probably the person he talked to most in the whole building. And it wasn't a whole lot, but every couple of days I'd see him around the building, and we'd speak a little bit and then have a little bit of exchange. But what I noticed was he wasn't having that kind of interaction with other people. So I knew that I was bringing that to this situation. But on the other side of it, the department head in this example, when I spoke to him, he had some legitimate concerns about this man's volatility. Mm-hmm. So as a result of this, we actually had security on staff, and we engaged with our on-site, security on site. We engaged with them to be on alert, literally outside of my office when this termination meeting was going to take place.
Wow. So I know how this ends.
Right.
You know how this ends.
Right.
So let our viewers, how did this end?
Right. So, had the classic call to this gentleman at his desk, had him come to my office, made sure security knew that it was happening. They, right as he walked in, they were kind of following him a little bit behind. They literally sat outside my office. The way the office set up was, my desk I was here, here's my desk, here's how you get around, and then chairs here, and there's the door right there. And again, that's all strategic. Those are the kind of things that we look at. We get down again to that granular level, say where are people sitting, where are exits, all of these different things. Who's nearby that might hear this and so on. So these are all the things that we consider. But in this case, we felt that it probably made sense as a precautionary measure to have security literally right outside my door. And that's where they were.
Interesting.
So I have this man come in. Again, I'd have some sort of relationship. I wouldn't say we were friends or anything like that, but at least we were more than a little bit cordial. Mm-hmm. And he comes in, and believe it or not, the first thing he said, and this is common, guys, this is very common, just so you know. When people see this setup, they have a good idea of what's happening, okay? He says, I'll bet you I know what this is about. And I say, well, what do you think it is? He says, well, with everything that's been going on in this company for the past year or so, my hunch is you're probably going to let me know I'm out of a job. And I said, well, so-and-so, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And he pivoted immediately. He said, I appreciate your honesty with me. I appreciate the way that we've interacted. I've seen how you handle yourself around this building. And he said, I'll be honest with you, it's a rough day for me, but I feel just as bad for you. And it gives me goosebumps even to this day to tell that story. And I tell this story in this example because this is the value of preparation. Because so often, leaders' reactions are when somebody's going to be impacted, they start to stay away from that person. I've seen it so many times. Oh, I don't want to talk to them.
Exactly.
I know they're losing their jobs. I feel so bad. But I didn't choose to do that. I chose to act like I always acted with him. He's a human being. I would want someone to be that way with me. And the other thing that I did was I didn't stumble over my words in that discussion. When he said, I think I know what this is about, and I asked him, well, what do you think it is? And he told me. I looked him right in the eye and I said, you're exactly right. That is what we're meeting about today. He made his statement, which again still gives me goosebumps, saying, he feels as bad for me. He knows he's going to land on his feet. And we actually had a very positive, productive discussion through that. And one of the things that I've always built into any of these discussions is to work as much as possible to give that impacted employee a soft landing. So in this case, we already had resources set up that we could point this person to say, okay, here's where you look for a job. Here's some resources to help you with your resume, and so on and so forth. So that was the other thing that we were able to do. And at the end, we shook hands, wished him, well, walked him back to his work area. He gathered up his things, and it was a very, I hate to say a positive, productive discussion, but it ultimately it was. And we averted a situation that some people are anticipating could literally get violent.
Right.
And it turned almost a 180 to that.
Right. So 2 points that I got out of this. First of all, the relationship building.
Right.
And, that may sound corny, that may be overused, but, I know in education it's always about, with the students, relationship building. But true relationship building from people to people, even the hardest students that I had to get through, when I had that relationship with them, it was because, they would do something for me. And they would even tell me, Mrs. Smith, I'm doing this for you.
Right.
They would tell me that. And then also not mincing words as you. So I heard that in there too.
Yeah.
That's another thing. When I taught, I was a hard love teacher and I didn't mince words. And the students liked that. They wanted that. They're people.
Adults are the same way. And especially, I've never come across an adult that it would tell me, hey, I want you to beat around the bush is what you're telling me. Be clever with your words and whatever. No one's ever said that. People want to know what's going on here. What's the impact to me? What's going to happen here? They don't want all of this extra, especially in these situations. When you're being told that you're losing your job, people just want to be told, here's what's happening. Here's why this happened. Here's what we're doing next. They don't want all of this extra stuff. It doesn't do any good. We told the story last week about the suckers.
Yep.
Nobody in that room was thinking, God, having a sucker will make this all better. Nobody thought about that because that's not what people want.
Right.
They want the truth. They want honesty, transparency, respect, and dignity protected. And ideally, you're providing them a soft landing because they put faith in you as an organization to say, I might have other offers to work someplace else, but I want to stay here. Because of that commitment, why wouldn't you honor that to say, you know what, let me see if we can make this landing a little softer for you. And again, that's where our outplacement services come in.
Yeah, exactly. So just kind of ending it at this point, is there anything else that we haven't touched base on that you want to share?
I think just to bring this back around to where we started, so much of this points to preparation. People get to look at that story and say, well, it turned out fine. Your preparation was a waste. I don't see it that way. Where I started with this is I said, we want to, in these situations, control as many of the variables that we can. So if the situation takes an unexpected turn, that's where we can devote our energy because we've got everything else in place. So that's exactly what we did in this situation. I had a relationship there, which has always been my approach with every employee that's been under my care as an HR professional. But I also consulted with the department head, made sure we know the person, identified risk, look for ways to mitigate those risks as much as possible, and again, provide that person respect, dignity, everything that they deserve as an employee in that situation. And that preparation allowed us to do that. Had we not, I don't know how that situation might have gone. Does it potentially go the same? I don't know.
Right, you don't know because
But I don't want to take that chance because, again, I want to have as much control over all the variables in those situations as possible because those situations we'll have some other stories on this, can go south very quickly without preparation.
Right, and just a quick example, I just finished watching The Big C on Netflix, and the wife had cancer. The HR person knew that the wife had cancer, and he had been with the company 20 plus years. Brought him in and just basically just told him, "You're done. You don't have a job anymore," and it became violent.
Yeah.
If anybody's seen the show, yeah, it became violent because of how she handled it.
And think about what you said. They had information that could be used.
Yep.
Because anybody in their right mind, if they've done some preparation, the first thing we'd say is, what do you know about this person? Is there anything that they're working through in their home life? That's a question I always ask.
Right.
What do you know about them personally? The first thing that would be said is, well, the wife has cancer. I would immediately say, whoa.
Yeah.
We need to take a step back and really look at this and say, is this what we want to do?
Right.
Because people in those circumstances can be volatile. I mean, again, who in their right mind wouldn't say, oh, no, they're already dealing with that, nothing else will set them off. Knowing these kind of things, knowing that maybe they just bought a house, they just bought a car, they're going to have a child, they're dealing with a terminal illness. We've got another story we'll tell at some point where someone lost a significant other in their life, and then they're dealing with it. So knowing that information and using correct judgment, up to and including timing. And I don't just mean time of the day or time of the week. I mean time of the year. Can make such a difference on how the situation is. So I'm glad you're telling that story, because you're setting us up for our next.
Yeah. So again, if you are looking at a closure, restructuring, layoffs, if you've been through these and they didn't work out well, contact us immediately, and we will help you through the process, because there could be legality issues as well. Compliance, we want to make sure that those are good for you as well, and to figure out a plan for you to be proactive. So again, Kyle, Becki, this is HRKyle Services. You can reach us at 330-541-5533 or email at kyle@hrkyle.com. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. See you next time.
Thanks for joining us on the HR Department, powered by HRKyle Services, your trusted partner for HR consulting, outplacement, talent strategy, leadership development, and career coaching. If today's conversation got you thinking, we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with anyone navigating the ever-changing world of work. To learn more about our services, whether you're a company leader, an HR pro, or a job seeker, visit HRKyle.com. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, hiring with intention, and showing up for your people.